Welcome to episode 593 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hilton, and I know that Xavi was sacked and Hansi Flick will be the next manager of FC Barcelona's men's team. We're going to get to that. We're going to talk all about the tactics of Hansi Flick, the legacy of Xavi as a manager, and we're probably going to be doing all that for at least the next few weeks, and probably, if things go well for Hansi Flick, the next 2 years. But today, the focus is all about the Barça Femení, which is, as I've been saying for years now, the best thing going on at FC Barcelona and the club in its entirety. So we're focusing on them, with the men's team attempting to take some of the attention back 24 hours from now. Let's see how all the Xavi drama kind of reaches its end at the end of the season. But again, before the men decide to try to take the spotlight back for themselves, we want to talk about the Femini's 2-0 win in the Women's Champions League final against Lyon. Thanks to my patrons, regardless if I'm covering the men's team, the women's team, or the academy. Thanks to the patrons always for supporting me, as well as anybody who listens and follows along on the podcast apps or subscribes to me on YouTube. Always a big help. So without further ado, the 5 headlines from the Barça Femini's 2-0 win over Lyon in the Women's Champions League final. Headline 1 is Unstoppable Graham Hansen. Setting the scene first before we talk about Graham Hansen, who to me might have been the best player of the last 12 months for any club in world football. It sounded like a pro-Barcelona crowd in Bilbao, which it should have been. As you know, there's a ton of Barcelona supporters in Bilbao, but it's also a quick train ride away. Now, Lyon from train isn't too far either, but as Ines said on the podcast this week, the crowds at Lyon and their supporters just have not come out in the numbers, and obviously there are much more in total quantity Barcelona fans around the world, especially in Spain. So a record-setting crowd for the final, nice to see. And they got action early. Second minute, early hard foul against Paredes by De Mornay, which I think established how physical this game was going to be. And this game was physical. Early pressure from Lyon that Barcelona had to manage. Little possession for Barcelona to begin this match. A lot of quick restarts from Lyon as well, and good defending from Barcelona prevented Lyon getting on the front foot, including Lucy Bronze dealing with that pressure early. But it was Barca that got the first shot on target. 6th minute, Graham Hansen to Perriello for a shot that she didn't get enough on. Graham Hansen establishing in the first 10 minutes that she was going to be a problem for Lyon on their right side. 7th minute, finally some good combination play by Barcelona as they settled down, but didn't lead to anything. That said, I was a bit more positive at that point because Barca were able to keep Lyon in their third of the field and continue to win the ball back in a way that I think a lot of Kool-Aids would wish that the men's team would press. The women of Barcelona have that blueprint of this is how you set up a press, this is how you win the ball back. Really great stuff, especially from Paredes, Bronze, and Engen, who I'll be praising more later on in this 5 headlines. Then the 10th minute, Graham Hansen was at it again with a cross. Rolfo at the back post just couldn't put it on target. And that's why I do remind you that the only reason why the Femení have not won every title over the last few seasons is their finishing. Really has nothing to do with chance creation. But when they miss the net in big finals, that's when things go wrong. So I was feeling a bit anxious and a bit tight after that Rolfo miss. Headline 2, set pieces. Because even though Lyon may not have had the majority of possession in the first half, they still had their opportunities. 14th minute, Lyon hit the crossbar off a corner kick. Cole got stuck in no woman's land. Moments later, Cole came out for it, misplayed it, and Barca survived though. Wendy Renal put it on frame, but Paredes did have it covered in case the foul wasn't called, so Barcelona surviving. That period then was followed by a lot of possession by Barcelona, which was always a good answer. It felt like whenever Lyon were getting something going, they were starting to percolate on set pieces and kind of made you gasp if you were Kool-Aid. Barcelona always seemed to settle things down with possession afterwards, but none of that possession in that first half was really leading to much threat. There were some more worrying set-piece concerns. In the 25th, Cole gave up a rebound, was able to pounce on it. On the other side, 28th minute, Patry causing some chaos. The American Hernan gave it away at the top of her box, and Patry got a shot off that was basically saved off the line. So both teams at this point, by the 30th minute, could have had a goal apiece. Headline 3 is Paredes and Bronze defending. Fortunately for Barcelona, Paredes and especially Lucy Bronze, and I thought Engen in the second half were really, really fantastic in this game defending. 36th minute, tremendous defending by Paredes to step in on a dangerous cross, and a really good game from her overall. Yes, she doesn't have the same ball-playing ability that Mappy Lyon does, but this back line was asked to defend for their lives. Win those 50-50, whether it was ground duels, aerial duels, and the back line for Barcelona did everything that they were asked to do on the night. Perriello goes to ground in 38th with a delivery from Bronze. Both were pulling on each other, but I'm fine with that call. Perriello had her arm where it wasn't supposed to be, so that's fine by me. Even the fact I know that they call a foul on Perriello, I also understand that. It seemed like she was creating the majority of the contact. 1 minute later, much better by Cole to stand her ground on the Renard header, even though she was a bit too far out, I think, to get too much power on it. 45th minute then, best chance of the first half for either team. Bronze gets it to Graham Hansen and allowed Graham Hansen to go right at Renat in open space, but her shot went wide. Barcelona ruining the opportunities that they might have had. Jumping ahead then to the second half, 49th minute, Catacol seemed to have calmed down a bit in her box by that point, punched out a corner, and Lyon keeping it in, and Barcelona fortunate that Renat skied it over. At that point, I know we know how it ends, but I remind you that Lyon could have had their chance as well, but they were not on target. Headline 4 is best in the world. The 50th minute, this is in my notes where I have this game changed. And this game changed because for the first time in my notes and in the 5 headlines, I'm mentioning the name Aitana Bonmati, who is on paper the reigning best player in the world. She came to life, I felt, around, as I said, that 50th minute, made a nice move, forcing Diani to defend. By the way, Rolfo did the same thing all game on that left side. So Aitana Bonmati horizontally going left to right, but when she would shade over to that left to Rolfo's side, just too dangerous, and Diani was forced to defend in her own half of the field, which did neutralize a lot of her counterattacking abilities and her ability to get out in space. And Rolfo is just such a good athlete, so big, so strong, and you do give credit to Paredes for making that choice. It was a difficult choice that we spoke about on the podcast in the preview. It was Bonmati, who is arguably the best left back in world football. Why was she not starting? If that hadn't gone right, then everyone's looking at that as the move. But Rolfo against Diani was a matchup that was won by Barcelona, and I think that really helped them win this game. Bonmati then finally coming alive, as I said, in that second half as Lyon starting to push players up, and there was a lot more space as well to drive into. And so Bonmati, if you're going to give her 12 yards, not only is she going to drive into that space, but she's likely going to pass to a teammate and get it right back and use that ball to basically teleport herself from A to B. And then if there's somebody to dribble at, now she has a space and a full head of steam to go right at a defender. I thought Kara Walsh also got better as the game went on, and Patre I thought was very consistent. High motor, of course, from Patre, like always, going box to box the way she does. And a lot of times, Patre and Walsh did really well in that midfield, just to stand up Lyon midfielders who were trying to drive forward themselves, and they weren't finding much space in the center channels. 60th minute, a good switch from Barcelona. Rolfo delivered the cross that Lyon scrambled to defend. And by that time, the subs were being prepared. Aitana, at that point, also seemed like she was carrying a knock, but she pushed on and seemed like she'd be coming out shortly if she wasn't able to shake it off. Fortunately, scoring goals does help you get rid of any injuries or ailments that you might have had prior to. The Bonmati goal, with those subs waiting, and that game could have changed at that point, but the goal is what changed everything. Barça building up from the back. Mariona, who didn't necessarily have her best game in the way that she hasn't had her best season, but still Mariona is a flash in the pan of brilliance, and you see it so often from her. You're kind of waiting for that moment that she's going to be involved, and this was her moment, playing the through ball. Aitana then drove, and on a shot that should have been blocked. Was it a cross? Was it a shot? I guess who cares? Because instead of figuring out what it was, instead Barca get the deflection and Aitana gets the goal. And this kind of worked perfectly for Barcelona because at that point, Rolfo, who had been up and down that left flank the entire game and was probably running on fumes, and she also hasn't been entirely healthy in the past few weeks. 66th minute, on comes Bonmati, and what an opportunity for Barcelona to put on one of the best left backs in world football, with Lyon also making their changes, bringing some youth on with Becho. 75th minute then, Bacha with the essential block, and we knew that there was going to be a moment that Bacha would be important in this game. Of course, she had to deal with Graham Hansen, and Graham Hansen, I felt like, got it better of her, as I mentioned in the first headline, but still she gets an essential block here. Graham Hansen on the counter, the 1-2 with Pariello, and Bacha just getting enough of a tackle on what would have been 2-0 at that point to put the game away. 76th minute, Diani curled one from distance against Batye, but it was just over. Then the 78th minute, Catacol was crushed by Haran on a cross. Batye went down as well prior to that play. Lots of blood, not for the squeamish here, getting her in the side of the mouth. And Catacol with the ankle injury on that collision, but she shook it off. Batye also shook it off, was patched up, and Barcelona showing some toughness as in the 81st minute, Ada Hedgeberg, I know she wasn't fully fit, but she entered with Barca players trying to pull themselves back together, trying to hold on to, at that point, to a 1-0 lead to win the Champions League. And I thought by that point, Barcelona looked like they're limping to the finish line, getting all patched up for that final stretch, and with Hedgeberg coming on, and I felt like that started the match's final chapter. Headline 5 is Dynasty Established, because what I love about this Barça Femení team and covering them over the last few years is that somehow the narrative is always right. People coming into this match may not have been watching every match, but they know that Aitana Bonmati has been the best player in the world now for 2 years, and she gets the individual award. So for her to score the goal, even though she didn't have a great game from minute 1 all the way to extra time, it was still her in that big moment, her being the current face of the team. And of course, that final narrative for the Femení as a team and a unit was to conquer Lyon, who they were 0-4 against leading up to this game all time. They had lost those 2 Champions League finals to them, and it seemed like the one team that they could not get past. And in this cycle that has seen Barcelona not only ascend to one of the best teams in women's world football, to become the best team in women's world football. And this victory today did establish that. So 83rd minute, Paredes again defending against Diani. So I know it was an earlier headline, but Paredes from start to finish was really good. 88th minute, she also headed away another cross clear. 87th minute, so the minute before that, another punch out from Cole. In the 85th minute, we also saw the other changes. Pariello out for Brooks and Mariona moving to the middle. Then in the 89th minute, Hedgeberg, header goes over. And that was the moment. Remember, it could have been 1-1 at that point, but Lyon were not on target on the evening. Walsh also had some good stops in stoppage time as Barcelona continued to batten down the hatches. And the final subs then coming, Walsh and Mariona off for Alexia Putellas, the captain, and Claudia Pina to close out the game. Bronze also putting herself in harm's way with a header away against her old team and got hit, knew she was going to get hit, continuing to show toughness to close out that match. And then the last minute of the game, the 2-0. Well worked, and I said narratives here, Claudia Pina and Ona Batlle. Pina cuts it back, and it had to be, who else but Alexia Putellas. Her 3rd goal in a Champions League final. It has been a hellacious 2 years for her, and for her to score in this Champions League final where we all know the name, but people haven't been paying attention to the day-to-day and how much she had struggled for minutes, for fitness, and how much of an up and down 2 years it has been since her ACL injury. So you could see what it meant to her. The yellow card was more than worth it. And the captain who just signed that 2-year contract, perfect close of the book on this chapter in Barcelona Femení history. And that is that they have, now at this point with this win over Lyon, they have conquered everybody over the last few seasons since they've won these 3 Champions Leagues. It's also the first quadruple in women's football history. So that is why I cover the Barça Femení. That is why I'm going to worry about Xavi getting sacked and Hansi Flick as a new manager in a few hours, of course, when the Barcelona men have to take on Sevilla. But for now, today is all about the Barça Femení. Thank you, as always, to the patrons who help me make these shows, as well as anybody who listen and subscribe either on the podcast apps or on YouTube. Yes, the men's team is my passion and fun to cover, but the Femení, that is actually what excites me. You can hear it in my voice. Eternal congratulations to the Barça Femení team, to Aitana and Alexia for their goals, and a terrific team performance against the one team that always seemed to have their number. So, in honor of the Femení, as always, Forza Barça.